It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm in the studio today with Greg Shipley. He's the director of the Office of Media Communications for the Maryland State Police. Thank you for joining me today, Greg.
Thank you, Donna.
The reason why Mr. Shipley is here is because this is the third in a series of cold case shows we've been doing. Maryland State Police has some jurisdiction on some of the cases that have happened in both Anne Arundel County and Queen Anne's County, as well as beyond. The case that Mr. Shipley will be talking about today is the one involving Robin Pope. Can you tell our listeners who Robin Pope was?
Robin Pope was a 51-year-old businesswoman. She lived in Queen Anne's County. She was reported missing by her husband on Saturday, March the 2nd, 2013, at 2:13 in the morning. She had last been seen by her husband several hours before, March 1st at 11:30 p.m. So this is a case that's now been open for 5 years.
Right.
It's considered a death investigation still. It was never ruled a homicide. The cause, manner of death, that kind of remains undetermined in the medical examiner's office. But there are certainly a number of factors in this case which make it suspicious, and something that our homicide unit continues to look into. Our criminal enforcement division continues to have as an open case.
Okay.
So it's something that we continue to look into, and a case that we continue to solicit information about if it is out there. And I will repeat this probably several times during our conversation today, but we believe there is someone who knows what happened to Robin Pope, and that is why we're not giving up on this case, and we want to bring it to a successful conclusion to find out what happened to Robin Pope, how she died, why she died, and certainly her dog as well, who was found dead in the water, which we'll talk about shortly.
Yeah, and let's talk about it. So she lived in Stevensville.
Well, the location of the Pope home was 145 Beach Road in Stevensville.
Okay.
It was a home that bordered the water, was on the water. However, Robin Pope had been staying at a nearby home after a recent estrangement from her husband. They were estranged in December of 2012, and she had been staying at a nearby home. So that was not her specific address, although she still had belongings there, which is what apparently brought her to that home the night she this all started.
Right. And so do we know, was the husband there the husband's name is?
Her husband's name is Wayne Pope. He called and reported her missing to the Queen Anne's County Sheriff's Office. They began an immediate investigation. Obviously, it was suspicious immediately when she disappeared. And this all began when he called and reported her missing, and it was related to police at that time that she called him that evening. They had been estranged. She called him earlier that evening, said she was coming by the house to pick up some belongings. He apparently dozed off and then woke up, and he found her sleeping in her vehicle outside in a black 2011 Infiniti. He woke her and said that he was going to his parents while she went in and recovered her belongings.
So she arrived at 2 o'clock in the morning to the house, or he realized that she was in the driveway? Is that what?
No, she was last seen about 11:30 on March the 1st.
Okay.
So that's when he said, "You go in the house to get your belongings. I'm going to my parents." When he returned from his parents, that's when things became very suspicious. He found her car still there, but neither she nor the dog were around. He called her cell phone. He called her friends. He said he went and began a search for her around the area. He went to where she had been staying. He returned home, and that's when he called 911.
Mm-hmm. And that goes immediately through to the sheriff's office, because that's who's...
The sheriff's office responded.
Right.
Robin Pope's car was still in the driveway.
Running?
It was not running, but inside were her cell phone, her credit cards, her purse, cash, keys.
Nothing taken.
Nothing taken. It was there, but she was not. Her youngest daughter reported that she had no contact from Robin Pope, and they speak several times a day. So as the hours passed, this was obviously very suspicious. And so the Sheriff's Department immediately began a missing person investigation, searching the area. And during that next day, they contacted the Maryland State Police. And because of a number of other cases that the Sheriff's Office was involved in at that time, they asked the Maryland State Police to take over this investigation, which we immediately did.
Just to interrupt you for a second, the dog was not a small dog.
No, it was a large dog, and the breed escapes me at the moment.
Great Dane.
It was a Great Dane, but it was 10 year. It was a 10-year-old Great Dane, a dog that was a part of the family and certainly very special to Robin, apparently.
Quite often, not occasionally, people are scared of large dogs. Yes, they will provide the deterrent to crimes. Do you find in your line of work?
It can be, yes, it can occur.
So does that
some people have dogs for that reason.
When we come back, we're going to find out about the finding of the dog and Ms. Pope. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. This is Donna Cole. I'm in the studio today with Greg Shipley. He's the director of the Office of Media Communications for the Maryland State Police. This is the third in a series of cold case shows we've done. We're talking about the case of Robin Pope. She was 51 years old, lived in Queen Anne's County, went missing on March 1st, 2013. She was with her dog, a Great Dane, obviously a large dog named Bella. Bella was found a day later, yes?
Yes, Bella was found dead in the water a couple of piers down from the Pope residence.
Was there a necropsy done on the dog?
There was. And no trauma was found to have been inflicted on the dog. The opinion was of the veterinarian that the dog may have died from hypothermia and exposure, but there was no...
Not from drowning?
There was no trauma.
Okay.
Again, this was part of a large-scale search and a number of searches that were done throughout the region there by the Maryland State Police dive team, the Queen Anne's County Sheriff's Office, residents and friends. There were volunteers by the dozens who were out there, citizen search teams, the State Police Aviation helicopter, the Natural Resources Police were there with cadaver dogs. The Queen Anne's County Sheriff's Office had sonar in the water. I mean, there were a lot of resources that were being utilized during this time, and I want people to understand that. There were a lot of folks out looking for her, and then the first, of course, find was the dog that was found.
And that was on the beach, not too far, but down by the pier.
It was in the water by a pier, a couple of piers down from the Pope's pier.
3 weeks later, what happened? Almost 3 weeks later, towards the end of March.
Robin Pope's body was found again in the water. This was March 23rd, just before 3:30. Some fishermen in the 500 block of Bay Drive saw a body in the water. This is about 4/10 of a mile south of the Pope residence in the water. Her body was recovered. She was positively identified through dental records at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, and one of the major parts of their findings is the fact that there were no injuries or trauma found on her body by the medical examiner that would have caused death. Mm-hmm. And the medical examiner said that's why that was labeled undetermined. Her cause, manner of death remain undetermined.
So they don't know if she was dead before she went in the water, or
there was nothing determined regarding that, but they assured investigators that everything that could be done forensically with that body was done, but there was no obvious immediate evidence of a homicide. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly suspicious. The unfortunately, her body was in the water for a long time.
That degrades
and it damages the potential for evidence collection, and makes it quite a challenge for investigators, both forensically and as contributing to the investigation. So, however, it's still an open death investigation. There are many questions.
Are there any people of interest in this case that you've held, or that you?
We've not held anyone.
Yeah, are there any persons of interest in the case?
I'm not. We certainly don't identify suspects, and I'm personally, having been in law enforcement for over 40 years, I'm not.
Because you're concerned it jeopardizes cases.
We don't want to jeopardize any part of this if it turns into a criminal prosecution.
So you can't answer the question.
And so I'm not. What I've said at the beginning, though, is that we believe someone out there knows what happened to Robin Pope, and that continues to be our belief. And why was she in the water? She was wearing high heels. She was still wearing high heels when she was found. We all know from living around this area that you don't go walking on the beach in March in high heels.
Right.
You don't go walking on the beach anytime in high heels.
Right.
That's not something. If you were prepared to do that, why was the dog in the water? Why did any of this occur?
All right, we're going to take another short break. When we come back, who Robin Pope was, kids, more. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. This is the third of a series on cold cases in our listener area. We're talking about the case of Robin Pope with Greg Shipley, Director of the Office of Media Communications for the Maryland State Police. Robin Pope, age 51, went missing the night of March 1st, 2013. Body found March 23rd, 2013. We've just passed the 5-year anniversary of this. There are no, this is a cold case. So Mr. Shipley has indicated police believe somebody knows something about this case. Mrs. Pope was a mother.
She was a mother, 2 daughters, and someone who was very active and well known in her community, both on the eastern and western shore, and someone who had apparently had a business meeting at a restaurant that night before she traveled back to Queen Anne's County, and contacted her estranged husband and said she was coming by the house to pick up some items.
The business meeting was on this side of the bridge?
It was in Anne Arundel County, yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Is that related to this, do you think?
We have no indication that there's any relation there. That's just simply what she was doing. She was out in the community, the night this occurred, acting very normal. Everything, occurring in her life as normal. Nothing to indicate that anything was any kind of criminal activity or intent was afoot. So, again, these are all things that investigators have looked at through the months and years since her death, and things that you want to make sure are covered in an investigation like this. But
you said she talked often with her daughters, or at least the younger daughter?
One daughter said that she talked to her at least a couple of times a day, and when that stopped on that March 1st date, she was very suspicious that something had happened to her mom. Her mom and obviously with the car still being in the driveway with all of her belongings in it, police knew immediately that something was wrong. And
the family and friends and she appeared to have many friends, Robin Pope, on the Eastern Shore and beyond. They do have a website, rememberingrobinpope.com. You're familiar with it?
We are.
So, yeah.
And again, she had many friends, as you said, and it's something that has helped police, but it's also helped to keep this story out there. And often in criminal investigations like this that are difficult, the fact that people continue to talk about it, to
bring it back into the public eye,
bring attention to it, is going to help us. The bottom line is, we're not giving up, and we hope that whoever has information about this will ultimately be forthcoming.
When I went on, and this might be because I don't know why it is, but Queen Anne's County Sheriff's Office continues sharing information about it, including a video that was done on the 5-year anniversary. Again, that's rememberingrobinpope.com. When I went on Maryland State Police website, because I didn't find anything about her on there. Is there?
Her case is not listed as a homicide.
So that's not considered okay.
Right. The cold cases on ours are homicides.
Are all homicides. Okay.
Murders. And so we don't have that. But again, our Centerville Barracks number is 410-758-1101, and call and provide that information and ask to speak to a criminal investigator, and we'll make that happen.
And this isn't a rural area where the house where the husband's or their original home was. There were plenty of neighbors around, and the houses are pretty close together. And in other words, maybe somebody saw somebody in the neighborhood. You seem pretty firmly committed that somebody knows something.
Our investigators feel that way, yes.
So maybe a neighbor might think that somebody they might have seen wasn't suspicious. Maybe any little bit of information does help investigators, yes?
Right, and that's something we remind people of regularly, is that we need your help. And even if you think something is minor or doesn't relate to that, oftentimes it can, especially when they're put together with other facts that we have.
So if you remember seeing anybody in the neighborhood, even in the weeks leading up, that didn't, yes,
right,
that could help?
Absolutely. Anyone suspicious around the area, in that area, or anything that you may have seen around that time period.
All right. One more time on the phone number for the Centerville Barracks.
That number is 410-758-1101.
Greg, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you, ma'am.
This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.